Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the witnesses being here. I was in another hearing, so I apologize for coming in. And I don't want to ask any duplicative questions, except for that it would be fresh for me. So any answers you give me will be fresh for me. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first seek unanimous consent to submit the following into the record. September 12, 2023, NBC News article entitled, "Iranian President Says Tehran Will Spend the $6 billion released in prior exchange wherever we want it," or excuse me, wherever we need it. Thank you. So I'm not going to make a lot of statements on this because I had prepared a statement. So I'm just going to ask a few questions. Is there anybody on the panel that believes that the $6 billion that we just gave plus 5 prisoners that we exchanged, anyone believe that the $6 billion is going to be used for humanitarian purposes? Ms. Levin does.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I got a bridge for you.
Congressman, if
Yeah.
I may add,
Yeah.
I share your skepticism on that, but I think also the issue is even if they do, money is fungible, so that would just free up other money that they could spend on other things, more nefarious purposes. So.
Yeah, that becomes that was my follow-up question.
I sense that.
Yeah, I mean, so even if they spend it for humanitarian purposes, it could go for nefarious purposes. In other words, they backfill it, move it around. It's all fungible. But they themselves have said we're going to use it any way we want to. That's why I'm incredulous that anybody would believe that it was all going to go to humanitarian purposes. Anyway, yeah, I want to know: is this the first time we've paid Iran in exchange for hostages? Ms. Coates?
No. Obviously, there was the hostage deal with the infamous pallets of cash that preceded the original JCPOA.
And how much was that?
That ended up totaling $1.7 billion for 4 Americans, so approximately 425 million American. Back then, under Biden's inflation plan, it's $1.2 billion per American today. So yeah. Inflation comes to every industry, Congressman.
Excuse me, Congressman, yeah. This is Iran's oil revenues. The United States is not.
I don't have a question for you, Ms. Lavin.
Okay.
I think you had people here that could ask you those questions. And that was money sanctioned because of, my next question is are there proxies for the Iranian regime that commit acts of terror in the Mideast or elsewhere?
Yes, sir. The National Iranian Oil Council, the Central Bank of Iran, the National Iranian Tanker Corporation, these are all organizations, institutions that are designated today under U.S. sanctions for terrorism finance of the Quds Force and other terrorist organizations. That has not stopped. The bank accounts this money is coming out of are designated for terrorism finance.
And that's known to this regime, our own regime, the Biden regime, right? I mean, they know this ostensibly.
They absolutely know that. They also know that that money that was sitting in Baghdad of $10 billion being moved to Oman during the summer in July with a waiver sent to Congress tied to a nuclear deal that has not been acknowledged is also tied to terrorism, as will the money that's being exchanged from the IMF SDRs totaling $7 billion, and will all the money that they're getting back from China in various ways for exporting oil that's not being enforced in our sanctions in a $50 billion deal, all tied to terrorism in some way.
And we're not enforcing the sanctions that ostensibly remain in place.
Correct, sir.
No, and I mean, we've gone from roughly 324,000 barrels a day getting out of Iran to China to over 1.1 million.
So also Iran is they manufacture and have stepped up their manufacture of weaponry, non-nuclear weapons that they're distributing and selling. Are the countries that they're selling to, are they friends to the U.S.? Ms. Coates?
No, I mean, one of them being Vladimir Putin's Russia. I would say these are countries that are pretty diametrically opposed to the United States, and I think one question we have to ask, Congressman, is why the administration is being so permissive of these shipments of drones to Russia when their only use is to blow up the American aid that the President is asking the Congress for.
So some would say, looking at the situation, that sending $6 billion over that's fungible We're actually funding both sides of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Yield back.
Okay.